Okay, so this is the second part of the class, like we agreed. And you guys have the recording of the first part of the class today. What is it that we're doing now, or what is it that we're starting a new play, and this time around, it's the Duchess. So have you by any chance heard about or of the Duchess of Malfi?
Yes, I watched the series.
Okay, so it was made into a series, and you watched some of them?
Yes, about the Duchess and when his husband, her husband was died, and her brothers say for her don't marry it again.
Nice, very good. MashaAllah, Bush. Okay, anybody else? Okay, that's fine. If you don't know, you don't know. And I'm not blaming you because you may be reading other stuff. Okay, so the Duchess of Malfi, or the tragedy of the Duchess of Malfi. And if the text says, or if the title says the tragedy, it means that we are in for another tragedy, unfortunately. So uh, the play is written by John Webster, and John Webster happens to be a famous dramatist, and he also belongs to the period immediately after the Elizabethan age, and we call it the Jacobean age. It's the time and the reign of James the First. James the First is the one who took over from Queen Victoria. Uh, so again, the climate of ideas is going to be almost the same because the time that has passed was not that big. We're not talking about hundreds of years. I mean, the gap is not hundreds of years. It can be a decade or 10 years, less or more. So people wouldn't change that much, and ideas wouldn't change that much. Still have hierarchies. Uh, we still have uh, prejudices. Still have hatred and greed and hunger for power. And what happens when people are hungry for power? So it's the tragedy of the Duchess of Malfi. So um, again, the play is English, but the setting is not English. The setting is also Italian, like it was in Othello. In Othello, it was Venice. Here in the Duchess of Malfi, we have the Malfi court in Italy. Again, you would ask yourself, if the play is English, why the setting is not English? And I think we answered this question before by saying that this is meant to avoid friction with the authorities. People like Shakespeare and John Webster have views, and some of those views are daring and candid. They may want to indirectly blame the government for some policies, for example. So if the government does not take it well, if the government does not show a spirit of sport, if you like, they can go to jail. They can be imprisoned for their views. So, in order to avoid this, they would have settings and characters that are not English. And they can then blame the government and criticize the government in their work. And when the government asks them, they would simply say, no, we're not talking about you guys in England. We're talking about people in Italy, talking about the court of Malfi, which is Italian. We're talking about Venice in the case of Othello, which is not London or English. So this is for those who ask why, if the writer is English, why the setting is not. So again, John Webster, who came after, he's a contemporary to Shakespeare, but he is perhaps 15 years junior. He is younger than Shakespeare. Again, we would apply all the ideas and the ideologies that we spoke about when we spoke about Othello, because they are almost the same. Still have hierarchies of rank, still have hierarchies of class differences, high and low. Rank means you have kings and queens, we have nobles, we have low-born individuals. And again, we'll talk about all of this. So the title of the play is The Tragedy of the Duchess of Malfi. First of all, what is a duchess? The duchess is the female of duke. So you have the word duke, which comes from, it's as simple as duke is like king or prince. So if you are a duke, it means that you're a king or a prince of a country or a city. So this is duke. Duke is king. Duchess is queen. So queen is duchess more or less in Italy. I wouldn't say in the language itself, but this is the political structure in some city-states in Italy. So when I say the Duchess of Malfi, I mean the Queen of Malfi. And Malfi is obviously a city-state or a state like Venice, has its own government. And on top of this government is the Duchess. And you would say, why Duchess and not a duke, not a king? The Duchess is a woman. And the simple and the short answer would be that the Duke died and the Duchess is now the Queen of the land. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so the Queen of Malfi, and Malfi is a city-state in Italy, like Venice. Okay, and we're saying the tragedy. And when we say the tragedy, it means that we are in for a tragedy as a dramatic form, which means you can almost expect what is going to happen in the play. Last time it was the tragedy of Othello, right? This time it's the tragedy of the Duchess. Can you see the difference? And the tragedy of Othello made Othello the tragic hero. And the tragedy of the Duchess makes the Duchess the tragic heroine. So we have a tragic hero as the main character in Othello, and we have a tragic heroine as the main character in the tragedy of the Duchess of Malfi. And we're saying the Duchess of Malfi, which means we're talking about a queen which means that we may be doing a bit of politics. There is going to be politics involved because we're talking about a ruler, somebody who is governing or ruling a country. So perhaps we're going to talk about the duties of a ruler, what a ruler should do and what a ruler should not, how the government should be run, and how running the government can affect uh, the entire country. Ideas like, okay,
Doctor,
yes,
the story of the Duchess of Malfi, it's take it from a real story, right?
yes, yes, okay. Uh, so the chapter that we're dealing with, based on the Duchess of Malfi, is chapter 3, Love and Marriage in the Malfi Court. So, love and marriage, obviously, there is nothing wrong with people falling in love and people eventually getting married. But perhaps what is wrong is sometimes this mismatch, like we have seen in Othello. Um, you don't have a marriage of equals. And this is not my views, by the way. And I'm not promoting them. I believe in interracial marriages. I believe in diversity and everything in between. So we're reading the play against the ideas and ideologies of the people in the 16th and the 17th century. And those people were all for the idea of purity of races, purity of color, hierarchies. They believed very much in the idea of hierarchy. Hierarchy of colors, we spoke about a great deal in Othello, where you're, if you're white, you are on top, and if you're black, you are at the bottom, and obviously uh, the two uh, ranks or levels cannot meet. So the white shouldn't go back or go down to the black, and the black shouldn't go up to the white. Here, perhaps we don't have a hierarchy of color because everyone is white and everyone is Italian. But what we have instead is a hierarchy of rank. We have a class system. Uh, a hierarchy of rank means that you have levels and ranks, and you're born into them, and there is no way you can change uh, your reality. If you are born a king or a prince, that's fine, you stay there. If you're born uh, a commoner, an ordinary person like me and you and everybody else, yeah, that's fine, keep it there. So if you're born a king or a queen or a duchess or a duke, and you have royal blood, you shouldn't, under any circumstances, reach out to people who are under you. Reach out in the sense that you think of them, you think of getting married to them, falling in love with them, and getting married eventually with them. No, this is not accepted, or this was not accepted at the time. And what happens if you insist? If you're a duchess and you insist on getting married to somebody who is below your rank, would you go? Will you get away with it? Did Othello get away with what he did?
No.
So we're expecting the same fate. The Duchess decides to get married to somebody way below her rank, one of her assistants. Would would she get away with it? For all we know, are we expecting her to get away with it?
No.
No. Yes, no. Sadly, no. So we know the tragedy, we know the end right from the very start, which is very ironic, right? So obviously, a man like Webster and a man like Shakespeare were not very keen on the idea of having an original plot, a plot that nobody thought of. Like Bushra said 5 minutes ago, that's based on a real story, which means a story that everybody knows. So where is the genius here? What are we looking for? We're looking for the skills and the talent in uh, writing a play that everybody or whose story everybody knows about, but we still enjoy it. Okay, writing a play as tragic and as morbid and as sad, and we still enjoy it. This is the real challenge. So again, it's love and marriage in the Malfi court. Like we said, talk about a court, we talk about royal courts, where this is obviously the seat of government. This is how countries are ruled. Let's move on. So we're talking about John Webster, the author or the writer, who lived between 1580 and 1634, who was also contemporary to Shakespeare, معاصر يعني, but he was younger like this. So are we in for something different in the Duchess of Malfi? No, it's also a tragedy, and it's also about forbidden love and forbidden marriage. Why? Why can marriage be forbidden? Obviously, when people get married, this is very legitimate. This is very legal. Why are we describing this kind as forbidden, mamnua? Why? Again, from our experience from Othello. Why? Why is this kind of marriage referred to as forbidden?
Hierarchy.
From that time,
As it goes,
yes, for the time in the past, they were forbidden to marriage. Maybe somebody who lower than you, or a black person. It was difficult to marry anyone you want.
so the idea is that something is wrong with the relationship. Wrong, is it because the two sides don't love each other? No, it's not about it. It's about the structure that they are in. We can expect that perhaps we have a color issue where one is white and the other is not, a rank issue where one is high and the other is low. So that can make this kind of love and this kind of marriage forbidden. Okay? In Othello, it was forbidden love and forbidden marriage because we know that Othello was dark and Desdemona was white. The Duchess of Malfi, we get to know as we go on that the Duchess, of course, is a queen, a very high ranking individual, and she loves and eventually gets married to a steward, one who works for her in her royal court, a commoner. So according to the dictates of the time, this is not acceptable under any circumstances. So what happens if she goes ahead and gets married this way? Do you think we are in for a happy ending? No,
Absolutely not.
absolutely. We learned the lesson from Othello. So we learned, like I said, we learned our lesson from Othello. You don't get married to somebody who is different and get away with it. In Othello, it was color, and it was the color issue. In the Duchess of Malfi, it's a matter of rank. She is on top, and and her steward, Antonio, was at the bottom. And she decides, against all odds, to get married to him. I mean, fall in love with him, and then eventually get married to him. Again, sadly, they will not get away with it. Again, I'm stressing the fact that we know the end right from the very start, which can be depressing because we know that it's a tragedy and we are in for suffering and agony and everything. Very depressing and very heartbreaking sometimes. Let's move on. So at the center of the Duchess of Malfi stands a heroine. A heroine is, of course, the equivalent of a hero. A hero is a man, and a heroine is a woman or a girl. So we have a heroine this time around, not a hero, which is unusual and quite unheard of in Renaissance tragedy. We're so used to having heroes, tragic heroes. Look at Shakespeare's tragedies. All of them are about and on heroes. King Lear, Hamlet, Othello, Coriolanus. All of them are heroes, not heroines. So this is quite unprecedented to have a female figure as the tragic hero, and of course we call her heroine. Okay, so does it mean that we're going to apply all the ideas and the features of the tragic hero on the heroine? Absolutely. Does it mean that we're talking about, and we are in the spectacle of a great woman? Absolutely. She is a duchess, a queen. Is she exceptional? Yes, we'll see that. Exceptional in the sense that she is tough, and being tough is not a bad thing. She is also obviously what a woman that has her personality. She doesn't allow other people to dictate what she should do. And you're going to see that she is the one who is going to go and ask for the hand of this guy. She's very assertive. And obviously, these are qualities that we don't normally have at the time. So she's a new kind of woman that knows their rights, and they go for them, regardless of the consequences. So again, this is quite unprecedented to have a tragic heroine rather than a tragic hero. Okay, so typical of tragic heroes, she is exceptional. And typical of tragic heroes, she has a flaw or a weakness in her character. And this flaw or weakness is going to bring about her tragic downfall at the end of the again, invoking our feelings of pity and fear. Pity because she is a human being like the rest of us, and fear that perhaps we can be tested like her and be put in her situation, and then we don't know whether will succeed or fail the test. Anyway, so we're talking about a heroine's marriage, and this marriage is a marriage of or based on love, quite unheard of at the time. And this kind of marriage goes against the wishes of their aristocratic family. Again, the consequences are disastrous because she's going to go against them, like Desdemona did. Remember Desdemona and what happened to her. So it's as simple as this. You have the Duchess courting and eventually getting married to her steward. Steward is a low rank assistant, somebody who works in the royal court, but he is a commoner. He is a low born individual, not a prince or a noble individual. This is as simple as this. Obviously, there is nothing wrong with being married or getting married or even asking to get married. What is wrong, according to them, is that she is reaching out to the wrong guy. And reaching out to the wrong guy does not mean that he is bad or something. No, it's because they are different. She is on top of the hierarchy and he is at the bottom. She's high-born and he is low-born. And this is what is going to drive the action of the play. This is what we're all talking about. Again, there is going to be a typical of tragedies and typical of plays. You're going to have a great deal of build up until the moment comes when we see her courting Antonio and offering her marriage and everything. Again, the idea of keeping the big event until later is something that dramatists know how to do in order to build up suspense and excitement and enthusiasm for what is coming. I can't tell you everything in Act 1 and then you go home. Remember, it's a 5-act play. Okay, so things are being kept and delayed for so long so that we feel excited about them. We want them to happen. But on whose terms? It's on the terms of the dramatist. He is the one who runs the show, if you like. So clearly, by the time the marriage unfolds on stage, we are in possession of a good deal of information about the dramatic world. So there is going to be a great deal of delay that is purposeful, that is intentional, delay in knowing what is happening, delay on also meeting the tragic heroine. So Webster seems to be providing us with a dramatic context against which to respond to his representation of love, and that's fine. In Act 1, remember what I said about acts Act 1 in general, and what I said about scene ones. And we said that these are places where you have some kind of introduction to the play. We normally call it the exposition, where there are hints and talk about what will happen next. There are hints and talk about the main characters, but they are delayed. We don't see them right from the very start. So what we're having here in Act 1, we're having the very first scenes. We have Antonio, whom we don't know yet, and we have Delio, his friend, whom we don't know yet. And then they are going to engage in an exchange. They are going to talk. And out of the revelations, we get to know that they belong to the Malfi royal court. They are courtiers, but they are low-born courtiers. I mean, they belong to the masses. They are not from nobility or part of the nobility or the gentry. So they work there. We also get to know through that exchange that Antonio was on a visit to France, and he was on a visit to the French royal court. He is back from the visit, and he's talking to Delio. Obviously, Delio is a colleague and a friend, and he's telling him about what he has seen. And through Antonio's revelations, we get to know that obviously something is wrong with the Malfi royal court, and something is interesting about the French royal court. Antonio is speaking very highly of the French royal court. He tells Delio that the French royal court is everything that the Malfi royal court is not. He speaks very admiringly about the French king. He says that the French king is wise. He doesn't surround himself with sycophants and flatterers. He takes his job as a king very seriously, and he believes that he is ordained by God and he should rule accordingly. And there is always a reference to the court, any court being some kind of what? Of a fountain. It's like a fountain. And it's a public fountain. So you'll have this analogy comparing any royal court to a public fountain. First of all, let's agree on what a fountain is. You know what a fountain is, right? Do you know what a fountain is?
Yes.
So what's a fountain? Okay, let's. I mean, sometimes it's difficult to describe and define. Tell me about why we have fountains, or in the past especially.
For beauty decoration reasons.
I'm not sure I heard that correctly.
For decorations.
Yeah, in the now it's for decoration purposes, but in the past it wasn't like this.
For water supply.
Yes, yeah, for water supply. Of course, they didn't. They were not as sophisticated and as advanced as we are now. They didn't have water coming to their houses, and it's as simple as turning a tap and you have water, right? They didn't have that. So in order for people to have access to water, they go to a public fountain, okay? And they go there and they get water and they go home with the water. So what do you think? Is it in our best interest to keep the fountain clean, or it doesn't matter?
Yes, of course. Keep it
Of
clean.
course, right? So what happens if the fountain that we take water from is polluted, is full of dirt, is full
Everyone
of,
will get infection.
yeah, everybody is going to be infected and poisoned, and some may even die, right? So this is what is happening with royal courts. A royal court is like a public fountain. If it's clean and pure, the rest of the country is going to be well and good. What happens if the public fountain that we call royal court is corrupt, is poisoned? What happens to the rest of society? It's the same thing. I mean, society is not going to function well. You'll have all kinds of crimes, all kinds of bad things happening to good people, right? So this is the analogy, and this is the comparison that is going to stay with us till the end of the play. So from the conversation and from the revelations, we get to know that Antonio admires the French court because it doesn't have corruption. And the king considers this cleansing of his court to be divinely inspired. He says, yeah, I'm ordained by God, and I should keep my court clean and this is obviously God's work rather than my own. Again, we're going with this kind of comparison between any royal court and any public fountain, and the influence of having a benign royal court. Benign means Hamid, not malignant. Malignant means Khabis. So in order for the country to function well, the royal court should be also functioning well. No bad people, no corruption. And obviously these are things that we don't have in the Malfi court. So again, we're talking about the French court, and Antonio refers to it as placid government. And he says that the king makes sure that he is only surrounded by wise and truthful counselors who, rather than flattering the king, give him candid and truthful advice about the state of. Okay, so Antonio, remember, he is a low-born. He's not a high-ranking individual. But he is given the ability by the dramatist to speak, and to speak in a very distinctive way. Again, as if the dramatist is preparing us for something, or preparing him for something bigger than himself. That's why he uses very beautiful analogies, very poetic language, especially this analogy of the common or public fountain that we spoke of. Okay. So simply, a prince's court any royal court is like a common fountain. And we make sure that from this common fountain that pure silver drops flow. I mean, water that is pure, that is silver. Silver is an indication or is a reference to it being pure and not discolored, uh, not having, what normally spoils water. So the common fountain from which everyone drinks should be pure, but if it is poisoned, it spreads its contagion throughout the land. Everybody gets infected. And obviously, this is very dangerous. It's the same with the royal court. It also has to be pure, less corrupt. The people there should surround themselves with good advisors. Otherwise, corruption is going to be there. And this is not in the interest of anybody. You can see the register here is political and religious. Register is a special language that people use in a certain domain or career. So, of course, Antonio is a diplomat. He works in a royal court. So he uses the language of a diplomat or the register of a diplomat. And he also uses religious register. When he says the work of heaven, blessed government, and blessed government. So he speaks about the royal court in a register, in a religious register, reminding us of early modern doctrines like the divine right of kings. Kings used to believe that they are divinely appointed and ordained by God. So after this encounter between Delio and Antonio is over, we see another character entering the stage, and this time around it's Busolo. And then followed by the cardinal. Again, when they talk, we get to know who they are and what they are in for. We get to know that Busolo has just come out of prison, and he is more of a hired killer. You give him money and he does your bidding, and we get to know that the cardinal is a Malfi court member. He is from the royal family. He is the brother of the Duchess, and they are in for something bad. So their conversation makes us suspect that what Antonio observed in France is conspicuously lacking in it. So from what they say and the arrangements and the plans that they were thinking loudly about, you feel that the Malfi court is totally different from the French court. If the French court was good, it means that the Malfi court is so bad and so corrupt. Okay, so when Busolo comes in, Delio talks to Antonio and he said, I knew this fellow 7 years in the galleys. I know this guy, Busolo. He recognizes Busolo and he said that this guy was in prison for 7 years. For what reason? For a notorious murder. He killed somebody. And people are saying that this killing was at the request of the cardinal. So you're talking about an atmosphere of murder and killing, and who is entangled in that? It's the cardinal who is a royal court member, which means we are talking about a corrupt court. So we quickly grasp that in this drama, the powerful, far from surrounding themselves with wise and candid counselors, hire men to commit crimes on their behalf. So this is what we feel, and this is what we are going to get. We're going to get a court, a royal court that has corrupt individuals, and that the royal court members, instead of surrounding themselves with candid advisors, they hire people to kill, to commit crimes for them. I would like to stop on this note and with this item because you had a lot today to process. Inshallah, when we meet again, we will finish the Duchess of Malfi. And we have a couple of minutes for questions, if you have any. Any questions? Anyone and everyone?
Quiz 1. It's in Wednesday, right?
I don't
يوم
know that. It's Wednesday?
يوم الأربعاء حيكون يعني يقولوا إنه يوم 21 صح؟
Ask Dr. Mohsen. Not Dr. Mohsen. Your A to 30B, it should be with Ms. Fatma Abel Hassan. You guys meet here in the master session, don't you? Right?
ما
Yes,
حضرت.
doctor.
طيب احضري. And then
لأنه ما توصلني إيميلات.
لا, go and check the elements.
طيب بس يعني هم أرسلوا في الجروب إنه في اختبار كويز، بس أنا ما وصلني إيميل أصلا، فأنا جيت أسألك يعني
Check if you have a problem with your email and check the LMS. I'm sure there will be an announcement over there. And also attend the master class. The master class link will be on LMS. Go to the course page and you will find all the details. Normally, the link of the class is in, we say, Unit 1, Unit 2. You have those boxes in there. Check any of the boxes. You're going to find the link to the master class and also the link to the regular class. An announcement, different types of announcement. Okay, everyone?
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Yalla. On this note and with this item, come to the end of today's class. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Thank you, doctor.